You're not seeing the profit, productivity, or even the purpose in everything you're doing because you're lazy. You're not seeing it more than likely because you're just too damn good at what you actually already doing. And that's exactly the problem. So you built the systems, you put in the hours, and somehow after all of that even, it still feels like a little bit of a prison. Might be a big prison. I don't know. That's not a business problem. That's not a business problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's a pattern. So I'm Spencer Combs. They tell me, they call me the pattern guy. And this is Spencer Uncensored, episode 105. And here on this show, we talk about the real reason your business isn't giving you the profit, productivity, and purpose you'd actually hoped for. So it's probably not what you even think it is, right? We've been off the air a little while, and I want to tell you that was on purpose. What we're building now is different. However, it's even more focused, more direct, and let's just be honest, it's actually more me. So by the time we're done today, in this short episode of episode 105, Spencer Uncensored, you're gonna know exactly what cultural gravity is. You want to hold on to that thought because cultural gravity is something we're gonna be talking a lot about because we're all experiencing it, we're all seeing it, we're all feeling it, but we've never realized that unforeseen force that's causing a lot of the challenges and why it's running your business without your permission. We're gonna be, excuse me. You're going to be recognizing the specific pattern that's keeping you productive but unfulfilled. And I'm going to give you the one diagnostic question that tells you whether you're building a business or just building an elaborate trap. Okay, so let's get down to it. Let's talk about cultural gravity. I don't want to waste time just goofing around talking about different stuff. Let's get down to business about cultural gravity. It's not a mindset problem necessarily. And it's not a market problem for sure. It's an engineered force. Just like gravity, you don't have to believe in it for it to work on you. It's pulling you toward the mean, right? And the mean, I basically means the average, right? And people that come to these types of classes or videos and sessions and learning, if you're like me, then you're going to be you're not looking for average. So that's why you're here. But we have this cultural gravity that's constantly pulling you towards that average, that mediocrity, that level of this is where we all are right now. It's toward the average, right? Toward what everyone else also expects of you. Think about that for a minute. There's a lot of expectations of what people think you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And here's the part that'll mess with you. It's using your own success right now to do it. It's keeping you right where you are. There's a specific pattern I see in entrepreneurs who are stuck exactly like this. I call them qualified victims. Now, when you hear that, you're going to be like, whoa, I don't want you to listen, don't get defensive. Qualified means you've earned it. You've got results. You have the proof. You're not a fraud. But victim means something has got you. And what's got you isn't your competition. It's not the economy, for crying out loud, no matter where it's at. And it isn't even your team, right? I'll go into businesses and they're like, well, if this person and that person, slow down, because the chokehold of just about any business is going to be its leader. The way Tony Robbins says it is the chokehold of any business is the psychology of its owner, right? It's the pattern running underneath all of it. That's what I'm looking to help make sure you guys understand. When we understand and identify the pattern, we can work our way back out of it. So look at it this way. Maybe you settle when you should be committing. You focus on what you're running from instead of what you're running toward, right? It's more of a defensive posture. I don't want this. I don't want that. What are we moving toward is more important. But if you're that qualified victim, you're probably struggling with, I don't want this and I don't want that. When things go sideways, maybe you look externally for the challenges, right? You look outside to find what the problem is. You like to blame maybe justify this is why it's the way it is, or even criticize, right? Is this getting heavy? Instead of owning it, basically, right? You dabble at the things that could actually scale you, because fear has more real estate in your head than faith does. And when the pressure comes, instead of bending, you dig in, eventually until something breaks. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. I want to tell you about a young man, because I think this is really where he was at. When I had this conversation with him, he was early 30s, and business was going well now. He was helping a lot of other people and doing really well. He was more present. He'd gotten some margin in his life, right? Mentally, financially, relationally. He wasn't really grinding to prove something anymore. He was building because he actually wanted to, right? But I knew that his story didn't always sound that way. There was a time when other things were going on in his life, and I wanted to know more about that. And so I asked him, tell me more about how we got here. And so he rewound the clock for me. He said 3 years earlier, the same guy had everything cultural gravity told him he was supposed to want. He had the BMW 740 in the driveway, waterfront house. I'm talking, when I say waterfront, by the way, it was sailboat access, meaning there was no bridges. So you could actually just go outside, get in a boat, and get out to the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever side of the flag you're on right now. But anyway, by the way, anybody in South Florida, Southwest Florida, they don't actually ever call it the Gulf of anything. They just call it the Gulf. Right? Back to the conversation though, right? He also had a very large real estate team that was doing really, really well. He was training in that office. Matter of fact, he'd even gotten the Trainer of the Year award. And by every external measure, cultural gravity had moved him right to where he was at in that moment. For all intents and purposes, he had actually arrived. And he was completely falling apart on the inside. He told the story, because I'm like, well, okay, well, that's not where you are now. So I like to find out where people are at and what makes the difference, right? So he said one night, he had come home and put in his headphones, and he went outside for his normal exercise. So put on his shoes, got outside, started going, and in his headset, he had Tony Robbins going on. I already mentioned him once today. He had Tony Robbins in his ear talking about something called threshold. Now, the threshold, if you've never heard of it, and we actually talk about it in Momentum and Mastery. If you haven't got our book, you can go to Momentum and Mastery, get that. Threshold is when a real decision is actually made, and there's 3 criteria for it, right? So it has to be done, it must be done now, and it must be done, or I must be the one to do it, right? So all 3 of those things have to come together at one time. And he said he ends up at the Caloosahatchee River, and that's actually between Cape Coral and Fort Myers, Florida. So if you know where that's at, he's standing on a seawall, looking at the Caloosahatchee River. It's flowing, just standing there watching the water. His marriage was unraveling. His wife had told him, "Yep, deuces, I'm out." Codependency had its hooks in the family rampant. Like, it was big time. It was so hard to get the escape velocity to get away from that. He was explaining just like every part of his life was built around this codependency. And here's the thing, business was still good, which somehow made it all worse. Because he couldn't point to the reason. He couldn't blame the market or the bad quarter or bad luck, whatever, right? So he had built the perfect little prison. And standing there at the river, something shifted. It wasn't sadness, and it wasn't fear. He said it was anger. And we talk about the dark side of momentum in Momentum and Mastery 2, and I think that's what he was describing there. It was a threshold moment. It was a very specific kind of anger. This kind that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself, when the gap between who you are on the outside and who you are on the inside becomes too wide to keep pretending. So he said himself out loud, he said, to nobody but the river. It was just out him in the river. He said, so we're not doing this anymore. This has to change. And it changes right now. All three criteria present simultaneously for the first time. That was his threshold. And I wrote about that in Momentum and Mastery because it wasn't actually my lowest moment. It was mine. That young man was me. Now, I'd love to tell you that the moment I made the decision, everything got better, right? You'd love to hear that, right? You hear gurus on shows and podcasts, and they're like, oh, made the decision and changed my life and things got so much. For me, that didn't actually happen. Everything I owned went into an 8x10 storage unit. I moved into a mobile home off of a dirt road, which that wasn't terrible. It was just, it was a very big distinction between where I was living before, right? I financed a car for $1,500 from a friend. Yeah. $1,500. I had to finance it. And, which by the way, was a Porsche 944. If you've never had one of those, man, super fun car. No air conditioning, but it was awesome. The waterfront house, gone. The BMW, gone. The team, gone. All of it's gone. And before I saw my way out, I lost everything. Cultural gravity told me, defined my value. That's when I basically understood what was actually holding me up. So here's what we discovered on the other side of that decision. It wasn't a new strategy, by the way. It was a better system. It was another productivity hack. No, it was not another productivity hack, ladies and gentlemen. It was a framework. And we call it the Unshakable framework. If you haven't read about it, it's two frameworks come together. What being unshakable really means is it doesn't mean nothing ever goes wrong. It doesn't mean you don't feel the pressure. It means your roots are strong enough that when cultural gravity pulls, and it will always pull, you don't drift back to the mean. You might bend, but you never break. There's three components. These are the three factors that we talk about when we're talking about being unshakable. Movement, you got to take action. Mindset, that's what a huge distinction between high performers and low performers. And mechanics. You got to have all three. Got to have all three. And they all three have to be congruent, which is how we come up with the entire framework to help you get where you want to go. See, the qualified victim I described earlier, they've mastered those mechanics. They can outwork, outsystem, outproduce almost anyone in the room, but what they skip movement and mindset, or they have some level of movement. They're taking action, but really what's probably missing more than anything else is a mindset piece. See, they built the top floors of the building before they ever poured the foundation. And cultural gravity loves that because a building with no foundation is easy to collapse. So here's my uncensored advice for anyone watching who recognizes themselves as a qualified victim description, what we talked about earlier, right? Stop adding more mechanics to a broken foundation. I don't care how good your freaking CRM is. I don't care how dialed in your follow-up sequence is. I don't care how many hours you're putting in. If your mindset is still running on the 5 inverted patterns we talked about earlier, right? Settling, moving away, blaming, dabbling, being super rigid. This is how we always done it. Your mechanics are just helping you build a much more elaborate prison. The work, guys, isn't out there. It's in here. And until you're willing to do the real work, cultural gravity wins every friggin' single time. I'm pacing myself on the language, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing better with that. I told you at the beginning I was going to give you one diagnostic question too. So let's get down to that. One question that tells you whether you're building a business or a business trap. Here you go. Might want to write this one down. If your business doubled tomorrow, would you be excited or terrified? If your business doubled tomorrow, would you be excited about that or would you be terrified? Sit with that for a minute, because the qualified champion who has done the foundational work, they're excited. More revenue means more impact, more freedom, more fuel. They're good to go. But the qualified victim, they're going to get terrified, because deep down they know the foundation isn't there, and doubling the business just means doubling the weight on a cracked slab. A lot of the people that I work with are in real estate most of the time, and so you guys know this. Those of you that are in insurance, you understand that if we have a cracked slab, we got a problem. That terror isn't weakness. That's your pattern talking. And now you have a name for it: cultural gravity. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Cultural gravity is not your fault, but staying in it, that's a choice. And the fact that you're still watching this tells me something about you. You already know something has to change. You felt it before you ever clicked play. And that's not coincidence. That's the beginning of Threshold. So we built an assessment. It's called the Qualified Champion Assessment. Super excited about it. Took me weeks to really put it together properly. It's a dynamic assessment. It's not just a simple question kind of. It's actually simple on your end. It was elaborate on my end, on the back end, to get it to do right. But it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. Kind of depends on how much you think about it. I don't want you to really think. If you want to get the most out of this assessment, you need to kind of go with your gut and go with the first one that comes to your mind. It's built that way, and it's very dynamic. It's going to take you down a path. Different people take it. It's going to come out differently every time. It's not a generic quiz. It's a diagnostic. The same one I use for a lot of my private clients. So the link's going to be in the description, but I'll tell you, it's the fast way to get there is go to unshakeablesecrets.com. So unshakeablesecrets.com. Take it before next Wednesday, because next week we're going to go deeper into the 5 E's of your business. And I want you to know the numbers before we have that conversation. So one last thing before I go. That young man standing on the river, angry, alone, watching the water, he didn't need a better strategy. He didn't need another course. He needed to see the pattern that was running him, and that's why I do this. I'm Spencer Combs, that pattern guy, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Y'all keep well, keep moving forward.